Um,
Hello again.
Lovely.
Naman Butsu. Good to see you again. It's not been long, but I don't know whether Kyokan can join us or not. I've invited him for this session. If not, we'll go back to carry on with our. Doesn't look like he's coming in, so yeah, I think we'll carry on with our other series, our other discussion on the Chakravartin king. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Oh wait,
Let's
yeah,
let's
he's
see.
saying yeah, he's
Oh,
officially come up as unavailable. So yeah, it's yeah, he doesn't look like he can join us. So okay, yeah, so I will share my screen. Where we left off was talking about the where is it now? One sec. Let me make sure I've got the right screen up. Yeah, I have that. And why is it not showing on here? Very weird. One sec. As we always say, unscripted, unrehearsed, teleprompter free here at the Gunkai channel. Right. We left off at the very last item of the what's going on here? Trying to grab my screen so I can. It's in a awkward position because of the. There we go. Okay. And we left off at the last item, which was the Ushnisha. The last we're talking about the 32 marks of a great man in Buddhism, which can either apply to a Buddha or to a Chakravartin king. It's what they share. It's the aspects, the marks, the qualities they share in common. And the last item was the Ushnisha, and we were going to discuss that. I don't know if did we go through this article? Do you remember if we started going through this article at all on the issue?
yes, we did, because then we looked at there was this confusion over whether it's the same as the top knot. Oh,
Yeah.
actually, wait.
See,
Scroll up. I
there's
think it just if under sorry, up a little.
a bit further this way,
Yeah,
you mean?
this representation.
Yeah. Okay.
The
So
first representations of the Buddha in the first century Common Era, not the expression I like, but anyway,
yeah,
in the art of Gandhara, um, also represent him with a top knot rather than just a cranial knob. It is thought that the interpretation of the Ushnisha as a supernatural cranial protuberance happened at a later date, as representation of the top knot became more symbolic and its original meaning was lost. Well, maybe not.
hmm.
But it's interesting that there's this.
Yeah. This yeah, that kind of is talking about what we were trying to, what we were talking about last week about I thought it was just the top knot and but there's this, and then we started looking at some pictures and actually saw there's something else there besides. Can you hear me okay? I'm getting a message
Yes,
that my internet connection's unstable.
it paused for a second, but then it
Okay.
came in very fast,
Okay.
so I
All right.
everything.
So yeah, so we were examining some photos of different images and statues and it does appear that there's something besides the top knot going on. It's not just and this kind of is talking about some of that. So shall we read through some of this else?
Yeah, there's some
Yeah.
interesting things in there. May I?
Yeah, sure.
Um,
Go ahead. Where do you want me to take it to? Or do you
so
want to
no,
read through the whole?
where we are
Just continue. Yeah. Okay.
yeah. So portrayal of Shakyamuni Buddha with an Ushnisha has varied throughout history and depended on which school is doing the portrayal. The Sri Lankan Tamrashatiya school and which would later give rise to Theravada, portrayed him as bald and having an Ushnisha extending into the sky and beyond the possibility of measurement, which is interesting because just as a side note, I remember once having a conversation with a well-intentioned, very misguided um, a Muslim in Indonesia who was convinced that you know about Borobudur in Java.
The what? Sorry. The
Borobudur.
I know. I don't think I do.
No,
About that.
so
Yeah.
it's actually the biggest Buddhist stupa in the world,
Okay.
because uh, before Indonesia was mostly well, before Java was Muslim, it was
Right.
Buddhist, and
Okay.
they built this enormous. It's if you can ever get to go see it, it's really worth. And once all the Buddhists on one side of it are Amida, so it's the five wisdom Buddhas, so
Okay.
four-sided
Yep.
sides, and then Vairocana in the middle at the top. He was making
Cool.
this point that they have, hair, and Buddhist monks are supposed to have shaved heads, so therefore these aren't Buddhist statues. Which I mean, I did think at the
Yeah.
time, like I could, so there's no statues, but I just let it slide.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's just interesting that there is a tradition that portrays. I mean, it says as bald. I presume that
Mm.
means with
Yeah.
a shaved head.
Portrayed him as the
Um, yeah.
somewhere. Yeah, they portrayed him as. I mean, this is Wikipedia, so we're not
Well,
in
yeah,
the
yeah.
we're not in the encyclopedia of Buddhism at the
No,
moment.
no, no.
So keeping that in mind. So
And there's a reference, but who knows if it's actually in that reference. So,
so yeah, this let's look at what the reference is so that's the Treasury of Precious Qualities, Book 2 of the um of Book 2 of Vajrayana and the Great Perfections. Is that? Let me just see what it's my Yeshe Dorje, Longchen, Rinpoche, uh, the Treasury of Precious Qualities, Book 2, Vajrayana and the Great Perfection. That's what that is referenced in talking about what we were just looking at. Anyway, that is interesting. What that it is thought that the interpretation of the Ushnisha as a supernatural cranium. Oh no, wait, sorry, I've skipped down. Wait, 1 second. Oh yeah, sorry, this part where it says, yeah, so portrayed him as bald and having an Ushnisha extending into the sky and beyond the possibility of measurement. That kind of makes sense.
mm, mm, mm.
That makes kind of more sense that it's kind of that it's symbolic representation of of the of the the Buddha's kind of enlightenment, the immeasurable wisdom, or you know uh, immeasurable understanding, immeasurable insight, immeasurable compassion of the Buddha, kind of thing. In a sense, yeah, that struck me, that
Mm,
description,
mm, 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 mm,
wherever
mm,
that
mm.
is, that it's, but thinking of it that way makes more sense. Uh, it takes it to a spiritual level, takes it to a Buddha level, and this is but again, coming back and saying this is shared by the Chakravartin. This is something that should be shared. This should be, a mark of a Chakravartin as well as a Buddha. So it's important to keep that in mind,
Mm, 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 mm.
the Chakravartin should be
Although I
um,
wonder if they'd be there, because I recall us reading something about it being sort of looking differently within a Nirmanakaya and a Sambhogakaya.
mm, mhm.
I wonder if it's
Oh,
also
maybe.
then
Yeah.
maybe muted a step further, right? I don't know.
So
It's
it,
just
yeah, in the Nirmanakaya it would extend
yeah.
into beginninglessness, and in the Sambhogakaya, that is, in the Nirmanakaya, it would just be represented by this, kind of uh, protuberance above the head a bit, kind of thing. for something
mm.
for us ordinary beings to be able to grasp in the
Yeah,
Saha world.
and then maybe with the Chakravartin, it's just like a little bump.
Maybe,
Um,
yeah, lesser than
but
the, yeah.
yeah. But it would make sense. Um, so the Gandharan school of Buddhism, however, never portrayed Shakyamuni with a protuberance on the skull, but with long wavy hair drawn up on the top of
Into
the
the,
head in a cluster of curls, or not concealing the Ushnisha. Um, it's also interesting, and I'm surprised it's not. I think I mentioned this last time that it's not in the list of 32 marks. Is that this like the very tight, sort of almost
hmm
abstract curls that
hmm
he has, and he's not always portrayed that way. Like sometimes, like it's saying here, the Gandharan statues, it's more kind of loose, wavy curls, and I've seen that too. It's unusual, but in some Ming Dynasty Chinese art, Shakyamuni is portrayed as having just sort of very naturalistic curly hair. So I'd like to know where that portrayal, because that's a more typical one with a very
mm,
tight,
yeah,
where that comes from
yeah,
and what the
yeah.
significance is. There seems like there
Maybe
must
we
be
can,
something.
or I wonder if it's related to the other things that are beyond the 32 marks that
Mm,
just a
mm.
Buddha has rather than the Chakravartin kind
That's
of.
that's
It's not part of the 32 marks because it's
mm,
part of
mm,
the other things that indicate it's a Buddha. This
mm.
is a Buddha we're talking about, rather than a Chakravartin, maybe. Something else that occurred to me when you were discussing about that, the stupa, was the shape of the stupa kind of harkens of this
Yeah, yeah, that's a very good point.
protuberance. When you first mentioned, I was like, I wonder if that's what he's going to say. Do you know what I mean? Is draw, but that's what it made me think of. Was it kind of has a similar shape to what you would. Do you know what I mean? That,
Mhm, mhm, mhm.
you know. So anyway, just a little interesting, I don't know, observation or something that occurred to me in that when we were discussing that. Um, so the Bodhisattva Chakravartin. Hmm, interesting in early Buddhism. In early Buddhism, the Ushnisa was represented differently. The Mahavastu and the Di- Divyanvadana, as well as the Theravadan Milindapana, Panya, describe the marks of the Chakravartin, an idealized ruler, Usnisa, or Patka turban, or Chatra parasol, horn jewel, or Vajra whisk and sandals. These are the marks of the uh,
Kshatriya.
Kshatriya. That's it, Kshatriya. Yeah. Um, and this I've come across before. These other things, this
Mm, mm.
turban, the Chatra, parasol, the turban, the Chatra parasol, horn jewel, or Vajra, the whisk. Well, it's the
Not
the
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 risk.
yeah the yeah the fly whisk, I think, and sandals. These are the marks of, yeah. So kind of so the mark of the idea is nisha is the actual kind of headgear of the. Is that what it's saying? That the protuberant would the mark would be. I don't know. What is that saying exactly? Describes the mark.
Really ambiguous the way it's written.
Yeah, right. It's worded. Um,
I mean, is that equating the Ushnisha with a turban, or is there a turban on
yeah.
top of the Ushnisha?
Some. Yeah. What? Yeah. I'm not sure what that's getting at. This is the
Or is it?
reason why maybe it's best to stick with the.
Yeah.
Sometimes with these kind of things, best to stick with an encyclopedia of Buddhism. Uh,
Buddhist Wikipedia is just not great.
There's some things are good, some things are really good, and then other things like this are just kind of what? What are you trying to say? Anyway, let's just read maybe further. It'll explain. So
Mhm.
the plastic art of early Mahayana Buddhism in Mathura presents bodhisattvas in a form called Ushnishin, wearing a turban or hair binding, wielding the mudras for nonviolent Chakravartin rule. Interesting. Just interesting tie-ins, I guess. We'll just say.
Mhm.
We'll call it and probably leave it at that. Anything else here? Let's see. Bull figurine. Yeah. Oh, anyway. Um, so anything
Can
else
you
you
just
want?
yeah,
Oh,
there's
sorry.
the Chinese of Ushnisha
Yeah.
is Roji. I don't know what a G is, but the first one character means meat or flesh. So it's like a maybe
Flesh,
fleshy
like a
protrusion.
fleshly. Yeah. So it is an
Yeah,
actually fleshly, well, in the
yeah. So
Chinese anyway, fleshly protuberance. Yeah.
oh.
Anyway, interesting.
And this is
So,
just as a
so yeah.
side note, while we're on Chakravartins, because all of this literature would have come into China since, I mean, clearly, right? That's why they have a Chinese for it. And I wonder how that informed thinking about monarchy in China, because they have their own sort of royal tradition. That's actually, they write a lot about. So yeah, as an
Yeah.
aside.
Yeah. Sorry, I was just looking to see if I had a page for. I thought I had a page up for the Ushnisha in like in a Buddhist encyclopedia type of page, but I apparently didn't. So let me just see if I can see if I can get it. Uh,
Good resource that
yeah. Oh, it's Encyclopedia of oh, Buddhism. Let's see what it brings up. Now I've got the Tibetan Buddhist encyclopedia, but that sometimes is. Should we go to the Rigpa wiki? See what it says there. Just as
Oh,
one
that's a
last bit of reading here, I think might be worth. So, the Ushnisha, let me see if I can enlarge this a bit for us. Oh no, I've switched my page around so I don't. Oh, there, okay. Let's enlarge this a bit. That better?
yeah, much better.
Yeah. Okay. So the Ushnisha is one of the 32 major marks. The Sanskrit term Ushnisha refers to turban, okay, diadem, crowned, wound around the head. Okay. So yeah, it was kind of turban,
Mhm.
um, crowned wound or a crown wound around the head. So that harkens of that, the shape of the top knot that you see in sculptures, and also the shape of the coming back to what we were saying about the stupa. Anyway, um, therefore, it refers to a distinguishing mark, and in the Buddhist context, to the characteristic mark on the head of a Buddha, which in which is the result of tremendous accomplishment of merit. So it's specifically referring to. So that's the Therefore, it also refers to the distinguishing mark, and in the Buddhist context, to the characteristic mark on the head of a Buddha, which is the result of tremendous accumulation of merit. So that's the endless, when you're talking about the endless, that's what that
Mm.
beginningless, endless,
Mm, mm, mm,
extending
mm,
immeasurably up is the limitless virtue and merit of the Buddha. It represents the vast wisdom he gained upon reaching enlightenment. The Ushnisha is the protuberance, which is round, shiny black, and coiled clockwise on the head of the Buddha. On statues, it represented a small, or sorry, in on statues, it is represented by a little extra lump on top of the head of the Buddha that can take different forms in various Buddhist traditions. In reality, it is an infinite protuberance whose summit is invisible, which is impossible to depict on statues and drawings. There you go.
mm.
Kind of,
That brings back in with
yeah,
the shrunk.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
But
exactly.
also just,
It's greater, limitlessly greater than Mount Sumeru. Its summit cannot be seen, or even beyond all
yeah,
the
yeah.
10 worlds and the Mount Sumeru of all the 10 worlds and all them and the great Mount Sumeru of in the middle, and it's just beyond all summits. All anyway, sorry.
But it also has this connotation of like a turban crown, which is
Mm.
interesting. That gets lost in the Chinese translation because they translate it as fleshy mound.
Hmm. Hmm.
It's interesting that
Yeah.
that isn't, that sort of extra layer of meaning isn't there in the Chinese. But yeah, it does sort of is obvious. If I'm understanding that right, that it's a kind of a crown wound round the head
The head.
is kind
Yeah.
of right. It has that regal dimension to it, which then
Hmm.
makes sense. It's also a
With
mark of
the
a Chakravartin.
Chakravartin, exactly. So, right. Well, shall we return to the Chakravartin page? Actually, at this
Yeah,
point,
that's where we departed from quite a while
yes.
back.
Let's see if I can find it again. And it's yeah, there we go. Now I can. I should be able to find it easier. That's yeah. So, and I think it's just we need to backtrack from this because yeah, there we go. So that's when this
Yeah,
is, so we went to the physical attributes and started reading this. And then so shall we continue with this reading from here? Pick it up again at the physical attributes. So comparison to a Buddha. Physical attributes. Chakravartins have similar physical attributes to a Buddha. Like the Buddhas, Chakravartin is said to be endowed with the 32 major marks and 8 minor marks of an 80 minor marks of a superior person. Well, I think we have another list to go through. The minor marks.
yeah, that's a long list.
That is a long list. Let's have a look here. Wow. Well,
But I wonder if the hair is going to come up in this one.
yeah, it might. It might. We might find that here. Let's see if we can just quickly find it before we start going through. I'll do a control F. Tips of his body hair are neither curved nor bent. Let's see. The hair of his eyebrows is fine. The hair of the eyebrows is flat. The hair of his body is consistent length. There's lots of comments on the hair. Shadow
Well, it does say there has curled hair,
has long. This one or what? This one.
but
He
I
has
really felt
curled
like
hair, and his hair has long curls. He has curled hair. Yeah. So maybe this is where that comes in. Is the AT minor marks, which again are shared with the both Buddhas and Chakravartins. Do you want to go through these quickly? See if we can get
Yes,
them done in
go
a
ahead.
session, maybe.
I
So
mean, I think this.
it's a really interesting. So, all right. Shall we read the bit here? Let's see. So, minor marks of a great person is a list of 80 secondary characteristics possessed by both Buddhas and Chakravartins. These marks or signs are also referred to as minor marks of a great person, 80 minor marks, 80 minor signs, 8 secondary, just says 8 there. Maybe it just meant, maybe that's a typo. 80 secondary characteristics, 80 minor marks of a Buddha. So the 80 minor characteristics are: he has beautiful fingers and toes. He has well proportioned fingers and toes. He has tube-shaped fingers and toes. So let's go with that. That's the fingers and toes. We'll stop there and maybe discuss. We'll do them in groupings, maybe.
Right.
So beautiful fingers and toes, well proportioned, tube-shaped. That's interesting.
I mean,
Tube-shaped. I mean, just so like it's like they're supposed to be. I don't know.
there's a little bit of repetition between these because I mean, well
Yeah,
proportioned,
yeah,
beautiful.
yeah,
That's what cube shaped is getting at, right?
yeah. There is
So
something about this makes me think of, there is something about a person's hands that tell you a lot, kind of
mm,
about their
mm, mm.
personality, their character, or how they might approach something. You know what I mean? And there's a lot of emphases on the positioning of leaders' hands, when they're speaking or when they're just standing, you know. And then there's all those cryptic things about the way leaders hold their hands. Do you for the
Yeah,
conspiracy for the conspiracy theorists and researchers out there. Yeah, yeah.
no, sorry, it's that, isn't it? It's
Yeah,
the
no, yeah, no. I think I think that's the.
sorry,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Oh, Illuminati confirmed. Anyway, sorry, sorry, but there's anyway.
Like, that's going to be screen
That's a
captured.
whole nother topic. That's a whole nother. We're gonna get a context hit on this one. Anyway, no. All joking aside, um, there is that when you look at images of leaders or you're watching them speak, there is something about the way they use their hands that gives confidence or helps them convey their message or something. It engenders. Anyway, yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I need to let someone in. If you can hang on
Oh yeah,
for a
sure.
second.
Yes, once again, unscripted, unrehearsed, teleprompter free. Yeah, there's something about that. There's something about that's a super important, I think, aspect of public speaking when people are publicly speaking. Sorry, I was just continuing to comment, while you were away. That there's something in public speaking too. It's very important how someone holds their hands. Um,
It it's terrible because I can only think of like the worst examples of this.
yeah,
But I'll give two anyway. Is I know there's like that Hitler spent a lot of time studying like in the mirror how to hold his hands, and you see that a lot of these images.
yeah,
And the other
yeah.
one, not also pretty bad, honestly, pretty
Yeah,
awful too.
that's a pretty there's a lot dictators, really
Yeah,
negative examples of leaders. Like Hitler and there's other leaders that the way they held their hands is yeah. Anyway, sorry, what are you saying?
the other one, but not much better. Well, maybe it can't be worse, but you'll notice that when you look at images of Andrew Tate, he's got this really studied way of how he holds his hands, and
Yes.
he's always. I think it's very
I never
intentional.
noticed it, but now you mentioned it, now I'm thinking of it.
Is, right? Which
Yeah,
I think he
yeah,
it is like a power pose.
yeah.
Um, and it seems very intentional because that's not like a naturally comfortable way to
Mm,
hold your hands
mm.
or this. But it just kind of goes to that like he's picked up on that and he's trying to cultivate that. But I think that speaks to the truth of what you're saying about sort of hands
Yeah,
and
yeah. That's a kind of negative use,
yeah.
but it's used by the flip side. Let's say the photo negative of the Chakravartin.
The
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 exact, yeah, yeah,
the
the
Ajatta
sort of the sort of evil, the Marek leader,
yeah,
if you will.
the Ajatta Shatrus of the world.
The what? Sorry.
Ajatta Shatru
Yes.
from the yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. The Satru's. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Although, anyway, that's a whole nother topic as well. But the yeah, but it is. I think of there was back in the day, sort of in the 80s and 90s, there was a senator, I think, and he had I think he had like a war wound. He was
Mm-hmm.
wounded, I think in battle, and so his hand was kind of, he couldn't he was sort of paralyzed, and so he would hold his pen in that hand, and it just became like this signature, you know, a signature mark, and it always harkened to, do you know what I mean? Like that, that it was a, do you know what I mean? Something like that. I can't remember the exact who it was or what the story was, but I always remember, for me, it was always, it added something to his, not only the way he held it, but just that was, do you see what I mean? And it
I,
was
I
it was so natural. Um anyway.
I'm sorry, I'm on a horrible roll here, but I need to counterbalance that with another awful example.
Okay.
Um, Stalin, one withered hand, and
Ah,
like it was like a birth defect,
yeah,
and you'll never
yeah,
see it. But he made very sure that if you ever see a photo of him and he's got like one hand in a pocket, but he made sure it was never on display, right? You only ever see his good hand. Um, but that sort of speaks to the same
yeah,
truth, right? That
yeah.
he didn't want to be seen.
He's
Um,
hiding. Yeah,
yeah,
hiding
yeah.
yeah,
The
hiding the truth. Kind of
and
sim
also when it's there's like and it's one of the Buddhist doctrines that like I think a lot of people I don't know those takes a little bit of um presentation skills, but everything bad is a result of bad karma, right? Like
mm,
including
mm,
ugliness
yeah.
and
Hmm.
physical
Hmm.
defects, which isn't casting aspersions on people with
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
but um so the consistent theme here of kind of physical perfection and beauty in all of these marks, I think that's what that's speaking to,
Harkens
right?
to the merit, the
Exactly.
unlimited merit of these beings, I guess, if you can call I guess a Nirmanakaya Buddha or a Chakravartin a being. But yeah, I guess, yeah, it would, because so um so that if there isn't anything malformed, or yeah, harkens of that limit, incalculable merit in that they've accumulated. So do we go on to the next grouping? Yeah, would you like to read those, actually?
Yeah, so his
Yeah.
fingernails and toenails are, well, so have a rosy tint, are slightly upturned at the tip, and are smooth and rounded without ridges.
um yeah, it's
Yeah.
again, just um like, it's just that perfection. I think that's what a lot of these are going to be,
Hmm.
is the perfection of the that's what it seems like a lot of this is. These minor marks are just drawing out that the sort of perfection, or unblemished, or not malformed, not, you know very healthy, very well, attractive, all these things that are indicators of very good karmic causes, you know, to an unlimited level, kind of, I think. Um, yeah, do you want to pick up on that a bit? I just need to go off camera for a moment.
Sure, sure. Um I can riff freestyle.
Thanks.
It's my turn to do it.
Thank
Yeah, I mean it's it's that exactly that concept that these Chakravartin or a Buddha has this enormous good merit, or maybe immeasurable good merit, and that manifests in the physical beauty. Um and we also see that in kind of this modern perspective. You want to say, oh, looks isn't everything and all that, which is, and you're back.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
No, you want to say that looks isn't everything, which is true, right? But there's also this depreciation of beauty and kind of the higher significance of that. Um, yeah. Uh, there's a great quote in there's a great quote in John Parskopoulos, the Reverend John Parskopoulos, has a book that's really, it's like an anthology of quotes, and not all of them even necessarily Buddhist or Shin, but he has this one great one from Kukai. Kukai, what's the title they give him? I want to be polite. It's not Dai, is it Dai Sho? No, Dai Shonen's Nichiren.
Shonen is Nichiren.
Yeah, it's
It's something similar.
I'll call him Shonen for
Yeah,
lack
yeah, for lack
of
of, yeah, master. Co
yeah. Master Kukai, forgive my ignorance.
There you go. Yeah.
But he has this quote. It's something like to the effect of everything that's beautiful partakes of the Buddha. So there's this, the sort of the greater spiritual significance of beauty, which I like that a lot.
Hmm.
Anyway, that quote's in that book. So how I came across it. Um,
Yeah,
yeah.
no, and another thing is we've kind of referenced throughout this series that with these 32 marks is the the Sambhogakaya versus the Nirmanakaya, and it's like
Mhm.
these beautiful Nirmanakaya traits are hearkening of the Sambhogakaya, and probably ultimately the Dharmakaya. Do you know what I mean? In physical form, this is what it would look like. This is the representation of all that in the physical form. Um, that's for a Buddha, obviously. Um, yeah. So, but that's what it looks like. I mean, most of this is feet are equal. He has beautiful gait. Do you know what I mean?
There's
Um,
one I saw
there's
that was interesting.
one. There's one that stands out as I'm going down. Is he has the demeanor of a great man. That's a little bit different than just this physical, unblemished, very well formed beauty. Uh, he has the demeanor of a great man. Suddenly, after, you know what I mean, 15 very physical things, we suddenly just have the he has the demeanor of a great man, you know, um, which isn't something necessarily physical. That's there's an air about somebody. It's their countenance, it's their vibe, it's their attitude, it's their emotional state, kind of. Is that right about demeanor?
Yeah, yeah, it's the they act like it, right? And maybe that comes from a certain knowing, and knowing that they of their greatness. I mean, it makes me think of that, the first thing Shakyamuni is supposed to have said is, in heaven and earth I alone am the well, I forget exactly the phrasing, but I alone am
Mm,
supreme in heaven
mm,
and earth.
mm.
Um, yeah, the behavior
So
bearing.
yeah, outward behavior or bearing is the so outward. So that goes along with these physical things that you can
Mm,
see. It's their
mm, mm,
outward behavior or bearing, which is kind of all the things I was I was sort of listing.